What I should include too is that his name, uh, Nimrod's name, means we shall rebel.
Hmm.
If you look in the Hebrew, that's what it means. So for Yahuwah to have him called, we shall rebel, and for him not to be a rebel, to me would make no sense. So we're going to first go with that and expose that, how even in the name Nimrod, it's referring to someone who's a rebel, and all of that. So, and I think I'll also Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm Brother Doug with my mom, sister Sharon, with our brother Yahusha, our sister Marissa. And today we're going to be re-recording a study we did a little while back. So we're going to be going into who is the anti-Messiah, who is the Antichrist. This is just a good way to, um, answer people that want to say, oh, well, why do you believe Nimrod's the Antichrist and all of that? So this is our response to those people that want to be saying Elon is the Antichrist and the next president or the next pope, and why we don't believe that. So we're going to go first to Genesis 6 to 8. I'm going to have my mom read from the NIV for you guys, and then I think what I'll do is I'll put on the shared screen from the Septuagint and show you guys the difference.
Genesis, did you say?
Genesis 6 to 8.
Okay.
We're going to start with the beginning.
Got it.
First instance of this guy named Nimrod.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. The sons of Ham, Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Raama, and Sabtaka. The sons of Raama, Sheba, and Dedan. Cush was the father of Nimrod, who grew to be a mighty warrior on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before Yahuwah. That is why it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before Yahuwah. The first centers of his kingdom were Babylon, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in Shinar. How far did you want me to read?
Basically 6 to 8, what you read.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Further.
That's okay. That's all we really wanted.
All right.
Because that gives you the whole story right there, right? So, again, there's a couple of things that the King James and others have mistranslated here. Mainly, the Hebrew word Gibborim, I want to talk about here because this ties in to ancient pagan history, you could say, why people tie him in with Gilgamesh. Okay, so if you go into the Hebrew and just the actual Septuagint of Genesis 10:16, you're going to see some differences. So right here it says, Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a giant on the earth, and he was a hunter, a giant hunter. And now here is where all the translations, they'll say before Yahuwah, people will close their Bibles and say, well, that's the end of the matter. He serves Yahuwah. Hold on a second. Okay, so we're going to go to the Greek here of before and show you guys something. It should not be before. Okay, so it says here, here we go. Here's the Greek word for before. Enantion. Enantion. Thayer's definition: over, against, opposite, contrary, metaphorically to oppose something. An adversary. Who does that sound like? Hostile, antagonistic. So how that type of Greek word gets translated as before, I'll never understand. But anyway, so we know that it's supposed to say against. And just for a second historical witness, okay, I gotta look. It's not this. One of the Targums actually says Nimrod, who was a against Yahuwah, a rebel, a mighty rebel against Yahuwah, I think one of the Targums say. So we have oral traditions saying that he was against yeah. So I would say so again, this anti-Messiah, when you look at the word anti in the Greek, it can mean in place of or against. And Nimrod kind of fits both. He is trying to replace Yahusha by stealing his identity, and he's also against him. He's against the Torah, against the law, and all that. A lot of interesting stuff here. So we have, right, he's a giant. How do we know that? Because some people will say, well, that's what the Greek says, okay? And that's not what the Hebrew says. I'll show you in the Hebrew that Gibberim doesn't always mean mighty man or warrior, okay? So if you look at hunter or warrior, Saeed, hold on, no, not that one. Mighty, sorry, I was trying to look at the word mighty. So hunter is correct, but when you look at the word for mighty, Gibor, in the Hebrew, it means strong, mighty, strong man, brave man, but can also mean a giant, powerful by implication, warrior, tyrant.
Mhm.
Aha. So we got a guy that is a rebel by the name Nimrod, means we shall rebel. He is a tyrant, a so-called champion, chief, a giant. All these are valid because as we see in pagan history, all these are going to be valid. So it's important to understand what he was, what Genesis 10:8 is calling him. It's calling him a mighty giant who was a rebel, okay? And all you have to do is look at the name Nimrod in the Hebrew. It says we shall rebel, okay? It's very clear. That's what it's saying. So there you have this picture just in 2 verses. We haven't even gotten to all these other scriptures. As you're going to see later on, he is known later in prophecy in Hebrew as Ashur. And that's a whole convoluted story how he becomes Ashur, what happens to the original Ashur, we don't really know. In Genesis 10, you have an Ashur of Shem. He kind of goes away. All of a sudden, he's not spoken about. Then you have the land of Assyria that he found. All of a sudden, in Micah, it says it's the land of Nimrod. Well, didn't Asher find it? Again, this is all speculatory how this stuff happened. But I believe, even though we can't prove it, I believe that when Asher in Genesis 10, the second son of Shem, he went out into that land that's called Assyria, founded Assyria. I think once Nimrod got all his kingdom, he was so greedy and prideful, he said, you know what, I'm going to take that guy down. We don't like Shem anyway, we're going to take him down. He kills the original Asher, possibly takes his name. Again, that would lean into the in place of part of anti-Messiah. Okay, he wants to take someone's identity. And then he becomes known later on as Ashur, and why Ashur in prophecy in the book of Ezekiel, Micah, all these different prophets, Ashur and the devil have like a connection. They both have a connection. There's like almost like a satanic counterfeiting of a oneness where Satan and this Ashur guy, the Assyrian, become one. And there's all these judgments on them, right, in Ezekiel 31 and all these places where it's leaning into the judgment of Satan, but it's talking about Ashur. So we're going to talk about that too. So all this stuff is connected. All these are like, yeah. Yeah, true. I apologize about that, brother. So, yeah. So and one of the places that I think, we got to start at with where he really hides himself as is historically we see this religion, Christianity, trying to create a counterfeit anointed one, a counterfeit Mashiach, with this JC character, and we see certain connections between JC and Nimrod. I'll see if I can show you guys something on Google, if Google will allow me here. I want to look up, maybe there's a side-by-side comparison. Let's see here. Apollo equals Catholic Jesus. Let's see here. I want to see if they're here we go. This is kind of interesting. There, when you really look at some of the imagery, I'll have to find that cathedral where they have a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus. But if you look up for yourself, oh, go ahead, brother.
Sorry, that was an.
Okay, no worries. I'm just go ahead.
Oh no, I was trying to lower.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. What is it? What is Google doing here? So I'm just going to show you guys, try to see here if I can find. Okay, so Apollo, right? We go to Apollo, which we're about to read about soon in Revelations 9, right? Apollyon, Apollo. Okay? You look at what he would look like. Usually, not saying all the times, usually blonde hair, blue eyes, got a bow and arrow. Where do you think that comes from? Oh, what was Nimrod my mom just read about? He was a hunter, bow and arrow, okay? All this stuff is connected. Apollyon, Apollo, okay? Now, let's look up blonde Jesus. Show you guys. I know this is going to be offensive for some people. Oh, well. Here we go. We got one right here. Here's a Catholic mural. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Mm-hmm. You think that's a coincidence? Here we go. We got another one. This is the traditional Catholic image. Okay, effeminate, very effeminate, like gay looking. Okay, blonde hair, blue eyes. Okay, so again, and I'm not saying every Christian idolizes that image, but what I'm trying to show you guys is that is who JC is. He's not Yahusha of the scriptures. He is not Yahusha of the New Testament. Okay? You've been lied to. You've been deceived into receiving another Messiah. Okay? And again, this is imagery from the heathens, how the heathens portray their gods. Okay? They are portraying them like this. I'm not. I didn't make these pictures. This is not Photoshop. Okay? So just saying. Okay? Now, let's go to the rest of my notes here. Let's go to everything's workplace now. I don't know what that's about. Zoom workplace, Google Docs work. I don't know what is with that. Okay, now going back to the original bullet point, if any of you want to contend and say, well, the Masoretic word says before, which is true. Okay, if you want to go with the Masoretic version, it would have said that he was a mighty hunter before Yahuwah. That's fine. Okay. If you want to go with that, just realize that before does not automatically mean he is righteous or serving Yahuwah.
Right.
Okay? Job 1:2. Let's go there real quick. I just want to show you guys something. Because I'm pretty sure this is the same Hebrew word that's being used. Okay? And Satan, it says he was appeared before Yahuwah. Okay? Doesn't mean that he served him. Okay? Okay, let me see here. It might not be verse 2. I might have got it messed up. Okay, let's see, where does it talk about that he appeared? Might have been verse 9. Yeah, here we go. So here we go. Here, perfect example, Job 1:9. Then the devil answered and said, before Yahuwah, does Job worship Yahuwah for nothing? So Satan's before Yahuwah, arguing with him, saying, no, he doesn't serve you because he loves you. Again, before doesn't always have to mean that
No.
he's in line with the person. It could mean that you're giving an account before someone, and you're up there in heaven, and you're before the Creator. Everyone has to appear before Yahuwah to
Yeah,
be judged.
that's right.
Does that mean everyone's judged that they're in line with Yahuwah? No. So let's not add to the text just because it says the word before. Okay? So again, that's a preconceived notion by a lot of people that somehow that Nimrod was a righteous guy. Nah, that's not what it's saying. Okay. Interesting to note, the Hebrew word Babel or Babylon has multiple meanings. I've heard this, that it can either mean gateway to the Elohim or gateway to Elua. That's one of the definitions. Or it can mean confusion, which I believe it's both. It's a little bit of both. Obviously, we know this ziggurat, this Tower of Babel, was a gateway into heaven. That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to get into heaven. Now, we can argue all day why they were trying to get into heaven, the fact that we only got extra biblical sources. The point is they made it to get into heaven. Now, to me, by itself, that would seem kind of rebellious to want to get up into heaven for some reason. Why are they trying to get up into heaven? That's already suspicious to me. Number two, if you remember the story in Genesis 10, it says, "Let us make a tower for ourselves, lest we be scattered." Okay? So here's another hint that Nimrod was not righteous, neither were the people with him. They were trying to make themselves famous so that if they got scattered, they would know one another, or they would be able to get in contact with one another. Okay, so let's see here. Genesis 10, where is it at? These are the sons. Maybe it's Genesis 11. Okay, yeah, it's probably Genesis 11.
I wanted to
Yep, go ahead.
for Babal meaning house of all, it's either Akkadian or Sumerian. So their definition of it, I forget which one. It probably was Sumerian, but it literally does mean house of all. I think for the Hebrews, rather than calling it house of all, they were the ones that called it Babal, meaning confusion.
Interesting. I forget which language it is that calls it a gateway to, like a stargate, a gateway to the Elua or Elohim. I forget exactly which language does that, because I know I've heard it before. Let me see if I can find it out real quick, because I know it's somewhere.
It's Akkadian. I just looked it up, but it would actually be not necessarily Babal, but Babalu. But almost basically the same thing. Just a very
So this is what I was talking about. Genesis 11 was, yeah, that's where I screwed up. So see, it says right here in Genesis 11:4, they said, "Come, let us build for ourselves a city and tower whose top shall reach to heaven." So their goal is to get up into the heavenly realm. Let us make ourselves a name, famous, make ourselves a name. Before we are scattered, they know they're going to be punished and be scattered. All of this is contextual to the story. A lot of people, this is why, though I'm speaking to you people out there, and I want to say there's no proof that Nimrod was part of building the tower. And we just went through in Genesis 10 how his name means we shall rebel, how it really should have been translated, he's a mighty giant hunter against Yahuwah, against in the Greek. Okay, so he's against Yahuwah, he's a rebel, and he's still there in Babylon with his kingdom. Towards the end of Genesis 10, he was building kingdoms in that area. And now all of a sudden, all these people want to build a tower to heaven. So all this is important to understand. So this is right in the text. Whose top shall reach to heaven before we are make ourselves a name, before we are scattered abroad the face of all the earth. That kind of reminds me of the Watchers. When the Watchers in Enoch and they talked about how, I want you guys to all take this to make this covenant with me, or to put curses on ourselves, lest any of us is scared and chicken out of what we're about to do, because they also knew they were going to get punished. It's kind of the same thing. So these guys know they're about to get scattered, and they're doing this anyway. So for people that want to say the building of the tower, that it was the humanistic interpretation that everyone was just trying to work together and accomplish something, this completely debunks that in Genesis 11:4. Completely debunks that, and it shows their true intentions without even going into extra biblicals, by the way. So, which you can go by and see historically how they interpreted this incident of the Tower of Babel, how Josephus himself interpreted it in other extra biblical sources. It's very clear the Hebrews of Messiah's time and before his time understood that Nimrod was always a rebel. That's what he was. That's why the Targums mention he's a rebel. He's, a mighty rebel against Yahuwah, I think one of the Targums say. So it's very clear, the narrative. Yahuwah, and for all those out there that say, well, Doug, you're kind of inferring stuff, and it's not literally there, that he made the tower to go up into heaven and to kill Yahuwah. It might not be there, but it's kind of inferred they have a nefarious purpose, okay? They have a nefarious purpose. They're trying to get up into heaven. They got a rebel leading them, making this tower. Yahuwah doesn't have to spell out everything for us. He's not going to put every little historical tidbit in his word. You got to look out sometimes outside sources to see historically what was understood about this event. So anyway, go ahead, Mom.
I just wanted to say too, what just hopped into my head was, and look at what Yahuwah's reaction was to it. Yeah. If it was a good thing, he would not have done what he did, because he basically did to them exactly what they were afraid of happening. Yeah. So, I mean, it definitely, once we see his reaction, we know it was not a good thing.
I believe Yahuwah, when he says in Genesis 11, and we can go there right now, what you're referring to, in Genesis 11, he says, nothing is restrained from them that they plan to do, meaning that if they're planning on going up into heaven and trying to make war, it is possible that they can get up into heaven and start a war in heaven. So, again, it's important to understand what was going on here. Okay, so it's in verse, I believe, 6 or 7 here. It says, Genesis 11:6, and Yahuwah said, behold, they are one people, one ethnicity, one lip of all, and they have begun to do this. And now nothing shall fail from them of all that they may have undertaken to do. Come, and having gone, let us gone down, let us there confound their tongue, that they may not understand each voice of his brother or neighbor. So why, and again, like my mom said, why would Yahuwah go through the trouble of this if they're just, if they're just working together, undertaking a construction project to make a tower of itself? Doesn't make much sense. So again, you got to infer a little bit sometimes. There's obviously a nefarious purpose regardless that's going on. So again, Yahuwah, made sure that this didn't happen. And again, the nations even today are trying Zoom is acting up. I wonder if it needs to be updated. I've seen it like this before on the Sabbath, where it starts kicking us off every time. Mind you, I'm on hotspot, so I have no idea why this is doing this today. So let me just see here. No. Okay. All right, so I'm probably going to be not showing a lot of the shared screen anymore, just because they're giving me a lot of issues with kicking me out of Zoom. All right, so we're at Revelations chapter 9, verse 11 now, because I think we pretty much talked about Genesis 10 and 11 ad nauseum at this point. I think everyone understands the points there in Genesis 10 and 11. Okay, now the king of the bottomless pit is called Apollyon and Abaddon. If you look up Abaddon, supposedly the claim is at CERN. The Temple of Abaddon is under CERN. The original Temple of Abaddon was destroyed in Geneva, Switzerland, and they built that CERN machine on top of that destroyed temple. So again, hence why there's a lot of weird things going on with CERN. Okay, so that's a rumor about the
Can you
whole Abaddon.
repeat that?
What happened?
Can you repeat that? What you said about what CERN was built on top of? I didn't catch that.
Yeah, supposedly the rumor is that the actual Temple of Apollyon Abaddon was at Geneva, Switzerland, in that location where CERN built their facility on top of. So basically, I guess at some point the temple got destroyed, and they built their the center and their machine on top of that location. I think it's even been in the news. Let me see here, because I remember Jim Staley talked about this one time.
Yeah, he did a whole thing on CERN.
Let's see here. CERN facility, original location of Temple of Apollyon. So this would prove why there's some weird stuff always going on at CERN. Paths of the Immortals, Skywatch TV. Okay, that's Tom Horn. Okay, so Tom Horn has cited something. Shiva, Apollyon, and CERN. His kingdom at hand.com. So there's multiple sources for this that supposedly there's a connection.
I would like to see like actual. I definitely believe Shiva is just another name for Namrud. Like that can be seen in their Trinity. But as far as like CERN, you mentioned Tom Horn, I would like to see his sources because I don't trust a single thing that the guy says. Oh wait, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of somebody else. But
Tom Horn usually cites his sources. Let me see here. Let me click on this real quick. Skywatch TV.
I apologize. I heard Tom Horn, but my brain went to Sid Roth. I apologize.
Yeah. Let me see here. So he's already citing someone from CERN on a quote. Multiple universes. CERN's government council wanted to build a kind of time machine. Oh, that's already sketchy. Universe appeared in the first microseconds.
Isn't Sid Roth TBN? Or no?
Sid Roth is more of. Yeah, he does like the Supernatural show. I saw like one episode like years ago. Like someone sent me a YouTube video of like it's Supernatural. And he's like a big thing about like he goes really into he claims to go into the supernatural realm of the scriptures and all this stuff. A lot of it is like it's borderline. I would say some of the stuff that he talks about, I don't know, it's borderline. You're kind of flirting with divination with some of the stuff, and it's like it's a Christian. He's a Christian guy that's claiming to know all this stuff about the supernatural realm and all that. I don't know. It gets really weird with some of his stuff. So yeah, I wouldn't trust him either. There's some stuff. This is a decent article. It's talking about the Nazis. Kaiser Wilhelm during World War II headed up the Nazi to push an atomic weapon. So he's talking about a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things being cited here. It's a shame that Jim, when he first mentioned it, he didn't cite his source, Jim Staley.
That was a good thing that he did too. It was very interesting.
Yeah, he mentions too about the gate, about what Babel really. One of the definitions of Babel, like I said, the Tower of Babel can mean gate of Elohim, like a stargate. He's talking about the NWO, how they want to create order out of chaos, yada 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 yada. Okay, Yeah, so I don't see any proof yet, but that's why I said rumor. The rumor is that basically the Temple of Apollyon was originally there. So you could already have like possible spiritual implications with that facility just being built on top of that old temple, if that old temple really was there. Let me see here. Temple of Apollyon. There's an easy way to fact check this. Should be able to just let's see here. What do they say? Temple of Apollo. That's interesting. So they actually call him Apollo at the temple. So this would be like a Greek. Okay. Yeah, even on this website, by the way, Wikipedia even says here Temple of Apollo, also known as Apollyon, was a major part of the Pan-Hellenic religious sanctuary located in central Greece. Okay, so that doesn't work. Yeah. So I wonder where I wonder where they got the information that it was in CERN. Yeah, so that might be misinformation. So that's why I said at first, I said that it's a rumor because that's all I knew it as. I just knew it as a rumor. So that's incorrect. Oh well, it's incorrect. But anyway, going back to Apollyon, you can kind of see where Nimrod is portrayed as Apollyon in the scriptures here. Apollo goes back to Nimrod. Apollo, like I showed before, had the blonde hair, blue eyes, very similar to the Catholic Jesus. So this is who it's talking about as the messenger of the bottomless pit. So when it says here in Revelations 9:11, they had a king over them, meaning the locusts, the hybrid locust army, which is the messenger of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew tongue is Abaddon. So Abaddon is the Hebrew, but in the Greek tongue has his name Apollyon. And like I just looked at, the Wikipedia article even admits that Apollyon is a derivative of Apollo. So that's who's in the bottomless pit: Nimrod, Apollo, Shiva. One woe is past. Behold, the second woe comes hereafter. So it goes on. It keeps continuing in the prophecy. The sixth messenger with the six trumpet sounds. You hear a voice from the four horns of the altar and all that. But the main verse here to focus on is Revelations 9:11. And obviously the occult like to work with numerology, right? You think it's a coincidence what they did was on 9/11? Just saying. Okay, they have a king over them too, who is probably Nimrod. Okay, so they most likely did 9/11 for multiple reasons. That's a whole nother study for itself. Why they did what they did on 9/11. So there could be multiple possibilities to that. But I think obviously knowing the Illuminati, how they work a lot with weird occult symbolism. They probably did that to portray. Some people claimed when the smoke came up that there was like a image of the devil, like a devil face in that smoke from the Trade Center. So I do think it was a ritual of some sort, and possibly a ritual to the beast, possibly. I also found it interesting in 1947, if I'm not mistaken, right? When you and Marissa were reading, I found out a week or so ago, 1946 or 47 was the Roswell. I think it was 1946. You had Roswell, New Mexico UFO thing.
Right.
Then a year later, you had Mr. Crowley and the other guy doing their quote unquote Babylon rituals. Okay. And then all of a sudden, after that, you have the so called State of Israel. So a lot of weird stuff was happening around that time. I find it interesting though, after the whole Babylon stuff, trying to manifest the whole the harlot of Revelation is what they were really trying to do. They even admitted it. That all of a sudden you see a lot of stuff with America now resembling Nimrod and Apollo and Horus, even though it already was. It's been ramping up a lot more. I find it interesting that let's see here. So if 1948 they did that, so you're talking about, let's see here, how many years would it have been in 2005 or 4? So you got 50, 54. 54 years later, after Crowley and what he did, you have America going to Iraq, supposedly taking the body of Nimrod out of there, not telling people that's what they're doing. And then supposedly, there's already been talks about them trying to resurrect Nimrod, and the Jewish state over there is saying that their Mashiach, the Moshiach's going to appear soon. A lot of weird stuff is happening like that. So that's why it's important to know who the beast is, because eventually all this stuff is going to be fulfilled. Okay. And so we know so far that Nimrod is a very good candidate so far, as we're seeing with these scriptures. Okay. So when people, go ahead.
Brother, can you look up an image on Google? Here in LA, we have a mall called the Citadel. And on the top of the entrance of the mall, you're not going to believe it, there is humongous statues of Nimrod perched.
Citadel.
It's called the Citadel in Los Angeles, the mall. Like Citadel. And if you look at the image of the mall, there is 4 humongous images of a man and a horse body or a goat. Do you see that?
Yeah, I'm looking at the building right now. So from the outside, it does look a little weird. It's got a Syrian type of structure. It's like very Babylonian looking and very Assyrian like.
Isn't that the head of Nimrod and the body of a lion?
Yeah, they're not giving me a shot from above, so I'm trying to see here. There's a weird bow on it. I don't know why there's a bow on top of the building. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. Yeah, this is the place that I thought yeah, this is the place that I showed you a picture of a while back. It has all Assyrian type of imagery. It has
Commerce, California. It's called the Citadel Outlet.
Yeah, these two guys are Anunnakis. You got especially to the left, that's an Anunnaki with the pine cone in his hand. Then you got, I think that would be either Nimrod or Nebuchadnezzar to the right. This is very strange, man. Why? This is creepy. Like, it looks exactly like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
Wow.
It's weird. Why would... Yeah, that's strange. So you see here, like... And I wonder when they made this. This is probably way after 1947. This is probably way after that. I wonder when this project started. Citadel Outlets.
But do you see the statues of Nimrod with the head and then the lion body?
They were only showing me the front side view, which was giving me the Anunnaki guys on the right and the left. I haven't seen any lion or anything.
Yeah, they have the image. There's 4 of them, and they're perched on gosh, I don't know why it's not showing it on there.
Yeah, I'm looking too.
What's weird is you can compare this to Iraq, and it's almost identical. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon that are in Iraq, it's almost identical to structure. So this is intentional. This is intentional. Yeah, and that's what the Hanging Gardens would look like too, with the doors. They got all that weird chimera animals and all that. So yeah, I don't know why they would want that in America, but this kind of shows you where America is going down either way. They're going down, they're serving Nimrod, they're they're making architecture to copy Babylon. That's definitely intentional. So again, that shows you who's really what type of spirit is in charge of America. Okay, a lot of people want to say, "Oh, this is a biblical nation." Okay, why are they making stuff to copy Iraq then? Why are they doing that? It makes no sense then for that to be happening. So I have a note here from Apollyon. The Greeks knew Nimrod by this name, the messenger of the bottomless pit. In the Egyptian religion, Horus or Anubis was the ruler of the underworld. So that's another thing. Possibly that's where Christianity gets the idea that the devil is, God of the dead and all that, and the devil, rules hell or whatever. They probably borrow that from mythology, because mythology would say that Anubis, the dog head god, is like the king of the underworld and all that, Hades and all that. So all that false theology from the church comes from that. The devil's not the king of hell. He's not the king of the dead and all that. That's all mythology creeping in. So let me see here. Revelation 17:8. This is another verse that shows who the beast is, because it's not a new guy. It's a guy that was and is, meaning he was the beast initially and still is. So this should cause people to throw out the notion that it can be any president or any person that has a name that equals 666. All this gematria garbage. Okay, that's not what Yahuwah is telling you to do. And we're going to go to Revelations 13. Don't worry, we're going to go there and in Revelations 13 and expose how people have misunderstood that verse. The beast that you saw was and is not, meaning he's not the true Messiah. He was the beast. He is not and is about to come out of the abyss or bottomless pit and is going to destruction. So this is how we know Apollyon is the beast. A lot of people will say, and you'll hear people say, "Oh, Apollyon's just an angel. That's not him." No, it is. Revelation 17:8 is a direct parallel to 9:11. Revelation's 9:11. Okay? So it says he's going to go to destruction, aka John 17, when Yahusha says, "The man of lawlessness, none that you gave to me perished, except the son of perdition," that the scripture might be fulfilled. And I think Second Thessalonians even talks about the man of lawlessness will go to destruction. So again, all these guys are the same person. What's interesting is Yahushua in John 17 is talking about Judas. So there's a weird connection between the beast and Judas. There's like a really weird parallel there. And it says, "Those who dwell on the earth and whose names have not, past tense, been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world will marvel when they see that the beast was and is not, but is to come." Perfect example of predestination here. The people's names who were not, meaning already were not, written in the book of life will wander after the beast, meaning those that Yahuwah did not intend to receive salvation will go after the beast. I know a lot of people, this gets them uncomfortable and they say, "Oh, it's mistranslated." Guys, almost in every Bible it says that. Almost every translation. It's not the translation. That's what's going on here. Yahuwah knows who's going to choose the mark of the beast. He already knew that from the foundation of the world. So he's not going to elect someone to be saved that wants to take the mark. So that's the most basic understanding there. So again, this whole universalism, we need to unlearn universalism. It's not biblical. So here is the mind that has wisdom. Now, the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. Now, this is not part of today's study, but I'll just give you a little synopsis of who I believe the woman is. There's 7 hills. Rome has 7 hills. The woman, the Vatican, sits on 7 hills. The Pope wears purple with red, drinks a golden cup. All that stuff is fulfilled by Catholicism. All of that. So they're the one religion that has killed the most amount of Yahuwah's people throughout history. You know, the Dark Ages and all that. Okay, they are 7 kings. 5 have fallen. The one has not, and one has not yet to come. When he comes, he must continue a little while. Everyone wants to go to the popes with this. Okay, no, it just says that there are 7 kings. There's 7 kings that John is talking about here. 5 have fallen. 1 is yet to come, and when he comes, he must continue a little while. Okay, so the problem here is this verse here does not automatically say that these kings are kings of the woman. Okay, there's gonna be 10 kings of the nations in Revelations, the 10 kings. Okay, so you also got to realize that this is not talking about one kingdom with these multiple kings. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that the kings being talked about in Revelation 17, there's no context to see that they would be talking about the woman as the kingdom that these kings are over. Okay, these kings are generic. It just says 7 kings, 5 has fallen. Now, one person has brought to my attention something interesting. These kings could have been types of the beast. These 5 that have fallen already, and guys like Chuck Missler and Rob Skiba put a good point out historically. All right, you got Sennacherib was a type of Nimrod. Yeah. He died. Okay, he fell. The Pharaoh of the Exodus, he's another one. He fell. That's 2. You have who else? Who else you have? That would be types of an antichrist, or sorry, not Christ, anti-Messiah. Hitler could be a 3rd, and so you got multiple tyrants throughout history that could fulfill this.
Yeah.
Antiochus Epiphanes could be a 4th. So, but nowhere here is verse 10 saying that these 7 kings are over the woman. Nowhere does it say that. So a lot of Seventh-day Adventists just kind of read into that. They assume stuff. So again, could it be I really doubt it's referring to popes. That's just me. But anyway, the beast that was, again, going back to verse 8 here, in verse 11 is reminding you, the beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th of those kings, and is of the 7, and he goes to destruction. Just like it says, the man of lawlessness will go to destruction. So 2 Thessalonians 2 is talking about the same person as Revelation 17:11. And so Nimrod is going to be going to destruction. What does that mean? He is appointed to be destroyed, is essentially what that's saying. So we see there very clearly, if Apollyon is that beast that rises from the pit, which he is, Apollo is a derivative of Apollyon. Nimrod's Apollo. Nimrod is Shiva, Horus, whatever you want to call him. He's the one ascending from the bottomless pit. That means he's appointed for destruction. And we see that in the book of Micah, I think chapter 7, where it says, the Assyrian will go into your borders. And it talks about, he who is the peace shall destroy the Assyrian. That's talking about Yahusha. Yahusha is our Shalom. He is the Shalom. He will destroy the Assyrian. So it's very clear. We see that. I think you guys were reading Isaiah the other day, right? I think it's Isaiah 10 or 11, where Paul quotes from, where it says, by the breath of his mouth, he will destroy the wicked one. Okay, the wicked one is the beast. Okay, so all this stuff is connected. All this stuff is connected. Now, a lot of people will argue, oh, well, Doug, it doesn't say one. It just says the wicked. Okay, but if you go to what Paul is using that for, he's clearly referencing the context of that prophecy. It's not just talking about the wicked in general. It's talking about this lawless one, this man of lawlessness, will be destroyed by the breath of Yahushua's mouth. It's very clear. So again, whether one is there literally in the Greek, that's besides the point. The point is Paul is expounding on that prophecy, saying that it's referring to the beast. Okay. So anyway, Zechariah 11:16-17, the idol shepherd. And again, this is where the elitists, they get their little one-eyed symbolism from. They cover the one eye. The idol shepherd, where his right eye will be utterly darkened. This is all this is all intentional. When you see people on a a movie poster and they cover their one eye on purpose. I mean, that's not. I mean, there's a difference when you see a picture of someone and they're looking, like, say, they're looking sideways and you only get one side of their face. I don't think that's one-eyed symbolism. I don't think that's intentional. But when, like, I'll just show you guys. I'm not promoting it, but let me just show you guys what I'm talking about here. Like, I go like this to my one eye, and I'm looking forward. You can see both sides of my face, but I'm covering one eye. That's intentional. That's intentional. That's the Eye of Horus symbolism. That's Nimrod worship. They're admitting that they serve Horus. They serve Nimrod, because the legend is that Horus, when he fought Set, his brother, this goes into Egyptian lore and their religion, that supposedly Set struck his eye out, like took away his eye. You see that in other legends. Somehow Nimrod loses an eye. In the Babylonian myth, he lost an eye. You know, it's always the same regurgitated story. So anyway, so Mom, you want to read Zechariah 11?
Sure.
16-17?
Okay. All right. For I am going to raise up a shepherd over the land who will not care for the lost, or seek the young, or heal the injured, or feed the healthy, but will eat the meat of the choice sheep, tearing off their hoofs. Woe to the worthless shepherd who deserts the flock. May the sword strike his arm and his right eye. May his arm be completely withered, his right eye totally blinded. Jerusalem's end. Okay, yeah, that's.
Yeah, so right, his right eye is utterly darkened.
Mhm.
So like I said, like when you see these celebrities, they whether they cover their eye with their hand,
What
or
are they saying with that? What
they're
are,
serving the
right,
they're serving the idol shepherd. They're making
okay.
they're, because these occultists, they know the Bible, they know what the Bible says, they know what darkening one eye is doing. They're promoting worship of the anti-Messiah. They're doing it on purpose. Like, I'll give you an example. Let me see if I can look up this poster. Think of Star Wars.
They're covering their eyes because they're signifying the eye of Osiris.
Yeah, and that's who they worship. They worship Nimrod. That's what they're doing. That's them showing you who they serve. So, like, for example, the Star Wars Force Awakens poster. This is one of the most obvious, where they have the lightsaber cover their one eye on purpose. I mean, this is not like I said, like me looking to one side and someone takes a picture from me like 100 feet away and you just see one side of my face. It's not the same thing. I'll show you. Like, there's a lot of people get confused and think those two are the same thing. It's not. Or you'll see a cardinal, right? Someone that likes to take pictures of birds. A cardinal's looking towards the distance, and you can only take a picture of one side of the bird's face, right? That's not one-eyed symbolism. So I'll show you what I'm exactly talking about. Force Awakens poster. Okay. This is intentional. This is when they're doing it and they're front-facing and they're on purpose covering half of their face. This is not even debatable. This is definitely one-eyed symbolism. I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so here we go. We got, I think this is Daisy Ridley. She's supposed to be, the Mary Sue character. Let's see here. Hold on a second. You just had her. So it won't let me expand, but you can see here she's got like this staff that is blocking one one side, well, her one eye. She's front facing. It's showing her whole face, and she puts her staff right in front of her left eye. Okay, or this guy, I think his name is John Boyega. He does the same thing. That's clearly intentional.
Oh yeah,
It's clearly
definitely,
intentional.
definitely.
Okay, so this is Horus worship. This is Osiris worship, and the Osiris and Horus, it gets all confusing because, you know, supposedly according to the legend, you know, when Nimrod dies, he supposedly goes up to heaven to become the sun god, you know, and his, you know, when Tammuz is born, he's reincarnated Nimrod. So that's why you see in the mythologies, it gets all convoluted because Nimrod and Horus are almost like the same person. Basically, I think what the devil was trying to do was counterfeit Yahuwah and Yahusha's relationship. So by making Horus a reincarnated Osiris, it's a counterfeit of what we call, or what some people in Christianity call the incarnation of Yahuwah taking on flesh. So not reincarnation, that's a whole different thing. Incarnation is the doctrine that a deity can become a human. That's why it's called that. So he's basically, Yahusha is Yahuwah incarnate in the flesh. So what I think the devil did was like, okay, I know this is going to happen. This is going to be part of his good news that he gives to his people. Let me beat him to the punch. Let me create a counterfeit of that, which is reincarnation, and create this whole thing where Osiris and Horus are one and all that. So the devil loves to do that. He loves to counterfeit stuff. Even counterfeiting the virgin birth. A lot of people don't accept the virgin birth today because, supposedly Horus was a immaculate conception and a virgin birth and all that. So they'll say that if you accept the virgin birth, that you're worshiping Horus, yada yada yada. Not realizing, again, you're talking about two completely different things. The virgin birth of Nimrod was not a real virgin birth. It was even in the story, it says that she claimed to have a virgin birth with Tammuz. Wasn't proven. She claimed to have a virgin birth after Nimrod was cut in pieces. That's the whole story. But there's no actual proof that would say, oh, she definitely did it, or she definitely had a virgin birth. There's no actual proof in the story even that she was telling the truth. So a lot of people, when they look at the virgin birth counterfeit of Nimrod and Tammuz story, it doesn't even match what Scripture says. Scripture says that yes, it was a virgin birth, but it was the Father coming in flesh. Okay, he caused her to become pregnant by his Ruach. That's a whole different story. If you look at the Babylonian so-called virgin birth. Okay, so the devil knew that the virgin birth was going to be a core factor of the Besorah story, the good news story. What does he do? He creates a counterfeit. And so a lot of people that have rejected the New Testament, rejected Yahusha, they're doing what the devil wants by doing that. Because he wants you to reject salvation. So the easiest way to do it is to make people think that Horus and Yahusha are somehow the same thing. And you see zeitgeist, like all these so-called documentaries promoting this satanic garbage, that somehow Yahusha and Nimrod are the same person. And believe it or not, those of us that still want to hold on to our Christian upbringing, that somehow, you know, JC and Yahusha are the same person, we're no better than zeitgeist. We're doing the same thing. Okay, we're essentially, in theory, doing the same thing. We're saying that Yahusha was in the church with us, that we've always been worshiping Yahusha. We're almost doing the same thing as the people of zeitgeist. So that's something we should really think about. Okay, the left eye of Horus on your dollar bill is the left eye of Nimrod. So again, the one-eyed symbolism, it's all there. So it's all there. Revelations 13, verse 3, a head wound. Now, it's important to note, according to Hebrew tradition, you could lose an eye and they would consider that a head wound, like someone ripped your eye out. That's considered a head wound in Hebrew culture. Okay, so Revelations 13:3 talks about that the beast that was brought back to life first had a severe head wound that would have caused him to die. So we're talking about a counterfeit resurrection here. We're talking about essentially a counterfeit resurrection from the beast, from Nimrod, which, by the way, if you do a little bit of research, the Egyptologists and all that, all these Egyptian Kemets, they believe Osiris one day will be resurrected. It's like in their Book of the Dead. So this is like common knowledge to all these pagan religions that this guy's gonna like rise from the dead. So why don't you, since you're there already, why don't you read verse 3 for us, since you're already there, Ma?
One of the heads of the beast seemed to have had a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was astonished and followed the beast.
You might as well read the next verse because we'll get
Men
into
worshipped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast, and they also worshipped the beast and asked, "Who is like the beast? Who can make war against him?"
Yeah. And the funny thing is that that concept is throughout all types of occultic literature. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Even though it's fake, it's not legitimate. I find it interesting whoever that author, John Dee or whatever his name was, whoever he was talking to when he channeled this book, caused him to write a narrative that this guy Thoth in the Egyptian religion basically starts a priesthood and gives authority to Osiris to be worshipped by mankind. So it's funny. It's like the devil exposes himself. Even when a guy is channeling spirits and all that, and he gets this Emerald Tablet book that is supposed to deceive the masses, it's funny that in it, it's still showing the same narrative. It's showing the devil, the dragon, Thoth, causing everyone to worship Osiris, Nimrod. It's the same story, just repackaged. Even the demons, it's almost like Yahuwah has a law over the demons. You have to tell the truth. It's almost like there's like some type of spiritual law that you can't like fully deceive someone. You gotta like they're almost forced to have to expose themselves. Because again and again and again, all these literatures are saying the same thing. With Yahuwah's righteous word, extra biblical literature, even literature that is supposedly New Age and all that. So anyone that tells you, like Billy Carson tells you that Thoth did not want to be worshipped or whatever, that's kind of a half lie. When you actually research and look into what the Emerald Tablets book actually promotes and all that, it actually promotes like Egyptology and all that, or Kemet religion. But anyway, who is like the beast? So my mom just read about that. They said, who is like the beast? Who can make war with him? Interesting to note, not saying this is scripture, but the Epic of Gilgamesh has a sentence in it that's almost exact to scripture. And it says, who is like Gilgamesh in kingliness? Who can make war with him? So I find it interesting, who is allowing these people that are heathens to write this stuff that is still bringing out the truth of who the beast is. It's ironic. It's like it's almost like Yahuwah is causing the devil to snitch on himself.
Yeah.
Okay. Revelation 6:1, given a crown to conquer, and he had a bow. A lot of people mistaken this for Yahusha. A lot of people have done this. I've seen a lot of people that will say, oh, well, he's the white horse rider.
Yeah.
But there's two white horse riders in Revelations. There's one in Revelations 19 and one here. They're not the same person. Okay, so again, does Yahusha ever say that he's been given a crown to conquer the earth? No. But who we do know is given a crown to conquer. One of the people that was led by this spirit of the white horseman, Nimrod, right? He looks up to the sky. He sees a crown. I mean, again, this is assuming that he told the truth about his vision.
Hey,
Okay,
but
he saw a. Yeah.
okay,
Go
so
ahead.
when you talk about the mortal wound, um, it's been said that that mortal wound is supposed to be the Catholic Church. Do you know anything about that?
Hmm.
The wait, can you repeat that for a second?
The mortal wound is supposed to be the Catholic Church, saying that there was a mortal wound to the Catholic Church back in the days during the some type of war with the Catholics or whatever. I don't really know, but there were.
I
But
remember the 7 Day Adventists will cite they like to cite Napoleon when he took the papacy away from the Pope for a couple days or whatever, which to me is
Oh, okay.
really reaching at that
Yeah,
point as a
yeah.
mortal wound because it's talking about something being brought back to life. I don't think you can metaphoricalize the wound there.
No.
That's really reaching in my opinion. It's really, it's talking about a person. It's not talking about a kingdom. It's talking about a person who was wounded to death. I don't know how they're getting Catholic Church there.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually do know. I have to correct myself. I do know why. It's because they're looking at the Protestant reformers and their little, when the Geneva Bible came out, the Protestant reformers would put in their footnotes a lot of their prophetic interpretations. And what happened with with the 7 Day Adventists, because they hated the Catholic Church so much, they went straight to the Protestant reformers for their end time prophecy.
is that part of
So
the
what happened was,
Inquisition?
yeah,
Is that have anything to do with the Spanish Inquisition, or no?
I think they would interpret. Well, the Inquisition would be more like when they were, you know, not when the head wound happened, but it would be more the. I think the Inquisition would interpret that as that's when all the blood of the saints were being killed. If I'm correct, the Protestant reformers would have looked at all the atrocities that were done, and they would interpret the Catholic Church because they think the Pope's the anti-Messiah. That was their big um, traditional view, was that the Pope was the anti-Messiah. I forget who they even called the false prophet. I don't think they ever even, because if you're already making the Pope the anti-Messiah, I don't know who the false prophet would be. That there was a lot of weird views because they were former Catholics that came out of there. So
Right,
they were like, to put it in layman's terms, like a spurned girlfriend that broke up and now just hates you. So now they're gonna make
Axe to grind.
like have an axe to grind and make everything about you. So everything bad about you. So like it's kind of like that versus like I don't think they ever got their interpretations of prophecy. Yeah, they're the Spanish Inquisition. I think that's is that early on, Mom? Like
I don't know that much
because the
about it.
Reformation would have been
1492.
What was it?
1492, I think or is it
Like,
1462, the year that Columbus sailed the ocean blue? What year is that?
Oh, got it.
yeah, so that's
The same
200
year.
years even before. That's a good couple hundred years before the Reformation even happened. So the reformers would have looked at that as like one of their reasons they thought it was the harlot, which I agree with them about the Catholic Church being the harlot, but she's not the beast. You can't, and that's a big misunderstanding with the Christian church today, eschatologically, is that some of them don't even think that there's an actual beast. They'll say that the beast is the kingdom, and then that is it. And then there's no, like, some of them will interpret First John, where it says there have been many anti-messiahs, right? So they'll interpret that as, well, then there's not one specific anti-messiah. So it gets very convoluted when you look at the SDA, Cersei, and what they what they believed. It gets very convoluted because they're trusting in men for their interpretation. They're trusting in, like, not even history, not even the scriptures. They're trusting in commentary from these older Bibles, like the Geneva Bible, which like has like loads of notes in the footnotes about what they believed, who they believed the first beast to be, and who they believed, the harlot was. Even though they got the harlot right, they got the beast wrong. The Protestant reformers, they got a lot of things wrong about prophecy.
But brother,
Eventually, they
Catholic Church being something to do with the mortal wound, because of course,
yeah,
I guess the Catholic Church was kind of out for a while, and then they came back. And I don't know if it's during Napoleon or what, but evidently there was a mortal wound to the Catholic Church, and then it resurrected itself, and that's why people were saying that that was linked to the Catholic Church.
yeah, the Catholic Church didn't really didn't die. It was the fact that the Pope was taken captive by Napoleon, and Napoleon took over the Vatican for a certain amount of time. So they're interpreting that as the head wound, and
stuff.
yeah, they take something like that out of context because that is not. It's not like the Roman Empire fell when that happened. So it's not even really a head wound. Like, he basically, the leader of the woman was dispossessed, and basically I forget what happened. Eventually, like, Napoleon, gave the Pope back and whatever. But that to me is not a head wound. And I know that's where they get it from, because the Seventh-day Adventists admit that. That's what they're interpreting as the head wound. So to me, it lacks a lot of evidence when the head wound is not metaphorical. It's a person. The beast is a person. It makes it very clear, because the whole context is you got this guy that ascended from the bottomless pit, and the false prophet, the second beast, is bringing him back to life. I think it even says him in the text. It's not talking about a kingdom. So the number one mistake a lot of people make is looking at the beast every time and interpreting the beast as a kingdom every time. So when it talks about the word beast, there's two Greek words. You have basileia and basilius. One of them means kingdom. One of them means the king, a person. So what happens is, like, every time the Christian church sees the word beast, they're like putting their own spin on things and saying, "Oh, that's the kingdom." But a kingdom can't rise from the bottomless pit. A kingdom can't do all these type of things. They can't cause you to worship it.
Okay, so brother, I have a question about that. So will that mortal wound be when Yeshua was on the cross and Satan was defeated?
I believe, according to like what the Hebrews interpreted as a head wound, and according to what happened almost in every story in pagan history, what happened to Nimrod, I believe that wound happened a while ago. I believe when he first was killed, that when he lost his eye or whatever, however the story goes, that was a head wound that caused him to die physically. And I believe the false prophet, like it says in Revelation 13, will bring him back to life. He will be given power to resurrect the dead. Because he even talks about in that same chapter, right, Mom, in Revelation 13, that second beast can cause fire to come down from heaven. Basically, that false prophet is going to be like a John the Baptist type of character, and he's going to be able to bring the first beast back to life, or however it is. I forget which is the first and the second beast, but he's going to be able to bring the anti-Messiah back to life. And then it says he will cause them who dwell on the earth, by doing this, by bringing them back to life physically, he will cause them to worship the beast. So the whole context of Revelation 13, it's a physical person as the beast being worshipped by the majority of the world, and mainly because the dragon gave him power to do certain things. Yeah, I would say Yeah, the spirit of Semiramis has a lot to do with the false prophets, and the spirit of Semiramis influenced Babylon itself, Sumeria itself from its inception. After she died, you had this spirit, this divine feminine garbage spirit that has influenced people from the beginning of time, pretty much. I mean, especially when you're talking about from Babylon, the original Babylon, Iraq, all the way until now. There's always, every time that Nimrod or her has an influence on a religion, she manifests herself and she tries to receive worship, and she tries to, a lot of it has to do with her. You know, the whole Shekinah glory, that's her spirit. Sophia from Gnosticism, that's her spirit. Every person that is led away to worship a divine feminine deity is worshiping Semiramis, even by accident. Like Mother Mary in Catholicism, that's Semiramis. They are literally being led by a spirit of delusion. But it says here, this is one of the things I wanted to touch on in this chapter, was verse 18. A lot of people are being misled into committing numerology and gematria with this. You're not supposed to add up someone's name to 666. That's not the point here. It says, here's wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is a number of man. And his number is 603. So it's not about, okay, let's figure out whose name equals 666. That's not what it's saying. And if you want to be completely correct about the original Greek of that word, that was calculated as 666, because you're already calculating it. From translating from Greek to English, chi z stigma is 666, you're already technically calculating it, because the chi z stigma of itself is a symbol. That symbol, those three characters together that make up a symbol, equate to 603. So a lot of people have been trying to figure out the beast and his number of his name by just trying to make his first and last name add up to 666. But the thing is, Yahuwah does not want us committing gematria. He's against gematria. He's against numerology. So that would go against Yahuwah's character. He's going to be against you committing divination, all that, but all of a sudden in one verse in the Bible, he's okay with numerology. Doesn't make sense. So people have been misunderstanding this for a very long time. The beast's name, the number of his name, okay, the reason it's the number symbol of his name, because he is represented by it. Okay, for example, the chi z stigma, if you look up in the Strong's Concordance, it says it can be a cross. The symbol of itself could represent a cross. And think about it. What do people put on their foreheads every Ash Wednesday? A cross. Okay? So it's a symbol. It was meant to be understood as a symbol. Chi z stigma is a symbol when you take the numeric value of those three characters, it equals 666. Now, I don't know how this got to the point where people were understanding. I guess they look at the word calculate, and that, again, I think we're taking modern terminology and we're trying to make it fit the text by using the word calculate there. Mine just says count. So again, that could be a mistranslation. So again, but people are taking that to mean, oh yeah, let me figure out, does the name JC equal 666? Even if it does, that's not the point. The point is that the chi z stigma was the numeric value or the symbol of his name automatically. Like, so, like, for example, you can go to the Islamic headband, right? The Islamic headband has chi z stigma on the headband, and it supposedly translates into in the name of Allah. Okay, that's more of a biblical understanding of what this verse is actually saying. It's saying that symbol will equate to his name. And again, the T for Tammuz was put on people's foreheads in Babylon, still is, with Ash Wednesday. This is a historical biblical understanding of what's going on. It's a mark. That's the mark of itself. The Chi-Z stigma is basically, in a way, the mark of itself, because it is being given to worshipers of that entity. So that's what's going on there. So I don't want any people getting confused thinking, oh yeah, we got to write out every person, every president's name and try to figure out if their name equals 666. That's not the point. So people are missing the point with that verse. Yeah. Picked up one side to the body. Huh. He was cut off. Huh.
Can I speak on that?
Yeah, sure.
So when you look at the head or the letter Rosh in the pictographic, it points to, you know, we have our head, the head of our body. It's the thing that you know, drives us forward. So it's like the first, right? You look at Yahusha. Yahusha is our head. He is the one that's leading. So Rosh and head, or Rosh depicted by a head, it points to, you know, a part of the body or a member of the group that is first, that is beginning, that is leading. Kind of like how you have Bada Sheet, you have that first letter R or N, Rashid. And so, like, when you look at Namrud, right, all these nations worship Namrud, or a different, or at least a version of him. But Namrud himself, his spirit, his actual being was the first. He is their head, but he was killed, right? So his body, the people that follow him and worship him, his body received a mortal head wound.
Interesting.
Okay, Brother Joshua,
Yeah.
also, what about Genesis 3:15, guys?
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that by extension. Even though mainly it was talking about Satan having a head wound, but by extension it would be those of his seed, yeah. Because it talks about the seed of the serpent. But yeah, it talks about that he will crush his head is definitely, I think, referencing also the beast, that the beast's head will be crushed. Yeah, I think that's also referring though to the culmination of it, that Yahusha will like eventually destroy him. So it's more of like a destruction type of head wound, because it will say he'll be against your heel and you will crush his head. So it's like crushing the head of the serpent would be spiritually the head of the seed would definitely be Nimrod. He is the head spiritually of the kingdom of darkness, because Satan gave him authority, like we read about in Revelations 13. He was given authority by the dragon. So I would say Genesis 3:15 could be applicable, but I would more apply that to the other prophecy of Satan being killed and the beast being ultimately killed in Second Thessalonians, where it talks about the breath of his mouth and all that. He will destroy him with the breath of his mouth, with the brightness of his coming. Second Thessalonians 2:8. Which is a cross reference, like I said before, of Isaiah 11, verse 4. So yeah, but it's valid too. It could be talking about a head wound. But yeah, I believe that the head wound has to be physical in the sense that it's a physical person. It cannot be a kingdom. It cannot be. That's just, to me, going along with the whole context of the chapter. It doesn't make sense to interpret that as the woman. So those that would believe is the Catholic Church, they would have to interpret then that the Catholic Church is the beast and the beast's kingdom. It just doesn't work. So that's why, because in verse 8 here it says, all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, a person. So those
Yeah.
whose names are not written in the book of the Lamb. So like I said before, the beast that's being talked about here is a him, an individual. It's not a kingdom. So that's where a lot of people get confused. And until I really researched into this years ago with Rob Skiba, when he was talking about this concept, that there's two Greek words for that is translated both as king, both as beast. So you have two different Greek words that one means a kingdom, one means a king, but both in the English are translated as beast. That's where people get confused. So that's where you got to kind of look into the Strongs and see what is it actually talking about. But it says, and another thing is too, if it's talking about a kingdom, verse 14 is saying that an image was made to resemble the beast, right? So you can't make an image to resemble a kingdom. That's almost impossible. So this image is supposed to represent Nimrod, the beast. Same way that Nebuchadnezzar, right? We could go back to Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Nebuchadnezzar did what? He was inspired by the wicked one to make a golden statue
Mm-hmm.
where it caused people to bow down and worship it.
Yeah.
That's intentionally supposed to be a foreshadowing of the abomination of desolation. So we see that's what it's talking about there. So there, it talks about all this so in Revelations 13. So again, 13:18, I just want to reiterate in my personal opinion, it is not telling you to use numerology to find out the name of the beast. I seriously doubt that. Just knowing who his character, he's not going to do that. Okay. We talked about Revelation 6:1. Did we go into depth about that? So the crown to conquer, I believe this is the white horseman of Revelation 6 is the spirit of the anti-Messiah. Many conquerors throughout history, many types of anti-Messiah. And what's funny too, like I said, let's say Constantine's telling the truth about his vision. He said supposedly the voice he heard in his head told him to conquer. Revelation 6:1 says the person was given a crown to conquer. Just saying. I'm just saying I find it interesting that all these types of Nimrod, they do things that Nimrod's prophesied to do. So you got this Constantine guy. He's a very tube like candidate to be a type of Nimrod. He tries to get rid of the Torah, Daniel 7. He tries to, impose eating pig on Yahuwah's people, sacrifice literally a pig on the altar, on Yahuwah's altar to an idol of Zeus, okay? Abomination of desolation. So this and by the way, the Maccabees interpreted that in their own book, the Book of Maccabees. They called it the abomination of desolation. So they looked at I'm sorry, I'm getting him confused with Antiochus. They interpreted Antiochus Epiphanes as a type of the anti-Messiah. Mm-hmm. They considered him to be a man of lawlessness. So this is all stuff historically we can prove. Now it says partial fulfillment, abomination, desolation, image of the beast was the statue of Zeus, Jupiter, aka Nimrod, being set up in Yahuwah's temple in Jerusalem, causing the Maccabean revolt. This is in 2 Maccabees 6 verse 2, 1 Maccabees chapter 1 verse 54, also mentioned in Daniel 9:27. Okay, so here's the next bullet point we have here. All the pagan holidays most people blindly celebrate today originate from the Babylonian religion instituted by Nimrod. Daniel 7:25 about that he would speak great words and try to change times and law. Okay, so we can trace almost every pagan holiday back to Nimrod, whether it's Father's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas, Easter. All of those go back to either Nimrod or his mother/wife. Almost all of them. Even Father's Day, which is kind of deceptive, but when you really research what Father's Day goes back to, it's like there is this sky god, this father sky god, Baal was known as. So when you really research, a lot of this stuff goes back to Baal worship. Mother's Day, obviously, originally, they were celebrating basically Semiramis in Mother's Day. That's originally what it was. It wasn't about motherhood. It was about a certain type of mother. Okay. But anyway, so Ecclesiastes 1:9, Solomon himself said, "Nothing new under the sun." And this is why I believe the original anti-Messiah in Genesis 10 will be the eventual end times anti-Messiah. So the full fulfillment will be in the end times. Revelations 13:15, I think we already talked about that. Matthew 24:15. This is a pretty important one. This talks about the abomination desolation. Matthew 24:15 says, "When you therefore shall see the abomination desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the set apart place," it's an image of someone. "Whosoever reads, let him understand. Let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains." One of the most misunderstood, misquoted verses. It is not talking about everyone. It says, those that are in Judea, the town of Yehuda, flee to the mountains. Because once that abomination desolation happens, Nimrod is going to hunt all believers. That's what the beast is going to be doing during the tribulation. The tribulation starts right after the abomination desolation, when he sets up that graven image and he breaks that 7-year covenant. And he says, you know what? I lied. That's why Paul says, he talks about peace comes, then sudden destruction. The Nimrod is going to act like the greatest guy in the world. The beast is going to act like the greatest guy in the world. He probably won't even appear to look like himself. He'll probably come as this, effeminate, blonde hair, blue-eyed Jesus that, gets all the world together like an ecumenical New Age Jesus and gets them to worship him, and then says, guess what, guys? You know how I said that I was going to bring back your Levitical priesthood and this and that? Yeah, I lied. And that's exactly what he's going to do. And so that's why Paul has warned us about this in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Daniel warned us in chapter 9. And we see Yahushua warning us again. He's saying, if you are there, flee to the mountains. So very clear about that. Now I just want to talk about one more verse, and we're going to talk about some extra biblical, even movies. Oh no, okay, we still got part 2. Okay, wow, okay, I was jumping the gun there. Okay, we still got part 2 to go. All right, so and this will be a kind of review for you, Mom and Sister Marissa. We'll be getting into Isaiah 14 soon. So we're at Mark 13:14, standing where it should not be, and there's not much expounding there. It's a renouncing of Matthew 24:15. If you see that, when you see the abomination desolation standing where it not to be. So part 2 of who is the anti-Messiah, the Assyrian, and this is a key title, guys, to be aware of. He's called the Assyrian a lot. Now this is interesting. A lot of people, they try to say it's Nebuchadnezzar in Isaiah 14 here and all that he's the king of Babylon. You know what I find interesting is towards the end of this chapter, I don't know if you and Marissa ever saw this, verse 25 of Isaiah 14, that I will break the Assyrian, destroy, in my land and upon my mountains, and I will tread him underfoot. Then shall his yoke depart from off them, and his burden depart from off their shoulders. So it's interesting that, right, a chapter that's supposed to be talking about Satan, or possibly the beast and Satan in Isaiah 14, towards the end, is talking about Yahuwah destroying the Assyrian. I find that interesting. And again, like if you go from like Isaiah 14:12 all the way down, it's talking about Satan and all that Hillel. So I find that interesting. Now we have Isaiah 23:13. It says, behold the land of the Chaldeans. These people were not, meaning they didn't exist until the Assyrian found it. For them that dwell in the wilderness, they set up towers thereof, they raised up the palaces thereof, and he brought it to ruin. What's kind of interesting to me is that he's saying that these Chaldeans, these Babylonians, didn't exist as a people until the Assyrian found them. And obviously, we know who found Babylon. So Nimrod in, what is this, Isaiah 23:13, Yahuwah is identifying Nimrod as the Assyrian. So Genesis 10:11 is also a reference to about him finding Babylon. Isaiah 30 verse 31, through the voice of Yahuwah, meaning the word Yahusha, shall the Assyrian be beaten down, which smote with a rod. So Revelations 2:25-29. Let's see here. 12 verse 5. Psalms 2:7-9 is talking about that same thing too. Why do the nations rage and imagine a vain thing? Isaiah 11:4, the wicked one. Okay, 2 Thessalonians 2:9 we mentioned before. So there's this prophecy again and again. Yahusha is going to destroy the Assyrian. Ezekiel 31:3, behold, the Assyrian was a cedar in Lebanon, with fair branches and with a shadowing shroud, and of a high stature. Now, to me, this is the biggest debunking, that it's a random human that's the Assyrian or the beast. Okay, he's being called a cedar of Lebanon. Okay, and anyone knows in Amos 2:9, Yahuwah compares the Amorites to cedars of Lebanon. Okay, so Yahuwah a lot of times will use trees metaphorically as people, specifically when it's talking about big, high trees. He's comparing to giants. So, with a shadowing shroud and a high stature, and his top was among the thick boughs. Again, if you go to Genesis 10 verse 8, he began to be a giant upon the earth. Amos 2:9, the Amorite was as tall as the cedar. Micah 5:5, and this man shall be the Shalom, who? Yahusha, when the Assyrian shall come into our land, the land of Israel, and when he shall tread in our palaces, then shall we raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 principal men. This is a end times prophecy talking about Yahusha being our Shalom, destroying the anti-Messiah, the Assyrian. Because then you go to Micah 5:6, the next verse, and they shall waste the land of Assyria with the sword, and the land of Nimrod in the entrances thereof. Thus shall he, meaning the Shalom, Yahusha, he shall deliver us from the Assyrian when he comes into our land and he treads within our borders. Okay, so all right, so now we're up to the Hollywood part. So even in Hollywood, they have portrayed this. They always portray this Baal character, Nimrod, Horus, Osiris, whatever you want to call him, always as the villain. It's ironic. And the first one you guys might be aware of is X-Men Apocalypse. Okay, Apocalypse, the villain of the movie, says he has been known by many names over many lifetimes. Now, I'm going to attempt to show the clip. Hopefully, YouTube doesn't copyright strike me like they always do. I need to find that fair use notice and use that like in the description of our videos, that I'm only using this for fair use. Please don't copyright strike me. But this is one of the clips I just want to show you guys where they're admitting that this anti-Messiah character is Nimrod. Let me see if I can find the trailer. Here we go, teaser trailer. And by the way, they had to change this scene because a lot of Christians and Jewish people got mad when they used Yahweh as one of his names. So
saw the end of the world.
Sorry about that. My audio volume wasn't clicked before. Here we go.
I saw the end of the world. I could feel all this death.
Jean, it was just a dream.
You wander through the willows in the forest you have found.
I've been called many things over many lifetimes.
Trying to hide.
Ra, Krishna, Yahweh.
So before they changed this in the movie, when the movie came out, they had this scene where this Apocalypse guy, which by the way is also a giant, he's also a giant, supposedly, Apocalypse. As you heard in the trailer, he said, I've been known by many lifetimes, under many names. Ra, Krishna, Yahweh. This is why us in this fellowship, we don't say amen, okay? Or any type of pronunciation of it. Because amen, amen, Amien Ra is one of his names, okay? It was attached to the god Ra, okay? Second name, right? Krishna, that's Hinduism. So he supposedly was Krishna. Third one is Yahweh, hence why we don't use Yahweh. One of the main reasons we don't use Yahweh. That and the fact that the only real group you can pinpoint that would have used Yahweh is the Gnostics, who actually didn't even worship Yahuwah, mind you. They didn't esteem him as the creator, and they're calling him Yahweh. So, again, Yahweh, if you research for yourself, if you trace it back to the Latin, like Jove is how it would be pronounced in Latin, I-O-V-E, okay? That goes back to Jupiter, okay? So again, Yahuwah would have never been called Yahweh. That was a reconstruction of the Tetragrammaton. It was so you have these three names of three pagan gods, and he says, I've been known by these names. So what is he saying? He's saying it's the same guy. All these nations are worshiping the same guy under different names. And that's how the NWO is going to do it. They're going to tell the Christians, by the way, you've been serving Baal too, just to let you know. Or they might not make it that obvious. They might say, oh, well, your God is our God. We're all been, the whole ecumenicalism thing. Mm-hmm. All roads lead to God, Okay? That's how it's going to happen. And Nimrod will probably, like I said, he'll probably be that Caesar Borgia type. He'll take that type of image or some type of very attractive image for women to fall in love with him, for women to worship him, for people to accept him in this modern world. He's probably not going to come as this Hamite warrior Gibberim. I seriously doubt it. I could be wrong. Maybe he does, but I think he will portray this image that people in Christianity mainly have fallen in love with, is the Caesar Borgia, however you pronounce his last name. That he will come looking like the JC of the Christian church. And somehow you're going to have Judaism, Islam, and Christianity all coming together saying, we were all wrong. We were always serving the same God. That's how it's going to happen. So I believe this movie, whether probably intentionally or unintentionally, is telling you that Nimrod is the beast. He's the Antichrist. He's the one causing chaos. He's the one trying, and the whole role of him in that movie, if you ever seen X-Men Apocalypse, I don't recommend it just because, there's nothing about it that's redeeming about, superhero movies and all that. But I'm just saying, if you ever did see it, you would see like the constant theology of the character Apocalypse is to kill the old world, make a new one like a phoenix, okay? And the phoenix symbolism, again, comes from the occult. The phoenix symbolism is New World Order, okay? When you look in the $1 bill, it has in German or Latin or whatever, it says Novoro Seclorum or whatever. That means new order of the ages. They want to kill the old world to make a new one. It's phoenix symbolism. Okay, so a lot of people don't realize that, but the whole phoenix stuff, that the new world order's into that. Now it's been rumored too. I can't say this is a fact, but a lot of people think that the eagle is on the dollar bill, right? According to Manly P. Hall, and according to all these people that found this country, that's not really an eagle on the dollar bill. That's a phoenix. So they're telling you in plain sight, they're all into reincarnation. They want to redo this world in their own image. Again, Apocalypse in that movie says the same thing. We're going to destroy this world and make a better one. Same concept.
This golden age that Trump keeps talking about.
Golden age. Yeah, he could be talking about that, the Luciferian belief system, that they want their own millennium. They believe in their whatever writings they believe in, that when the beast comes, when their Messiah comes, their Satan's anointed one comes, that they will have rule over this earth. That's what they've been promised. Satan, even
Uh-oh, what happened? Where do you go?
I think he dropped out. No, he's still there.
Yeah, but you can't hear him.
Yeah, I
What?
don't know.
Either.
I wonder if the whole thing with not that I subscribe to a lot of um the common Tartaria beliefs, but I definitely can see how cultures have been wiped out and then rebuilt, um and I wonder if there have been pre-versions, like pre-versions of the New World Order, not like the final version. And if we see like evidence that there's been, prior kingdoms that have been wiped out, I wonder if the enemy, what we're actually seeing is the enemy at different times trying to move ahead of Yahuwah, trying to go ahead and take his throne, and then Yahuwah wiping it out, because he says it's not time yet.
But Trump has been talking about this golden age. Everybody's talking about this golden age. I think this golden age signifies the beginning, maybe, of the 7 years, because right now they're saying that the economy is booming and everything is good and kumbaya. And their goal is 2030, right? Their goal is to do something supposed to happen in 2030, because of course they all go by gematria. So 30 is a very important number for Illuminati. But they've been talking about the year 2030 agenda for the longest time, even before COVID came in. And Trump is just constantly talking about this golden age that we're living in now, this golden age.
I believe it has to do with what they would call the age of Aquarius.
Yeah.
I believe that the age, basically to them, the age of enlightenment. So if you have Yahuwah's people waking up and receiving his spirit, then you also have the enemy's people waking up, because there are definitely people that are destined to take the mark and to worship him. So I think it's the same thing. I think that the age of enlightenment to them is where, people are awakened to the false Messiah and receive of his spirit, or at least begin to awaken to him. It's like the counterfeit of what we see happening in this walk, is what I believe.
But remember, the Bible says that a kingdom divided can't stand. So why would they be enlightening people about a fake Mashiach?
Because that's who they worship. They don't believe he's fake. They believe he's the real one. You think they wouldn't be following?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I thought you said that they were enlightening people to realize that they were serving a fake Mashiach, but in reality, they are the ones that are deceiving the people with a fake Mashiach.
Exactly.
Yeah, just like my friend Doug. I mean, he actually tried calling me, and I told him I was still on the Zoom line. So I guess he just wants to tell me, like, how he feels about the interaction or whatever, which is fine. But, Abba removes people from our lives. I mean, I've been friends with Doug before he even moved to Florida. I've known him for over 30 years. And he's a very nice guy. He's a really sweet man. But, he's not in the same sphere, I would say, as I am. He's not, we're unequal yoke.
Yeah. I would say so. He's under a different mighty one.
Is that what he clearly says?
Well, he believes that, he used the name the Lord, and he said, I believe that I'm in the truth. And, he equates himself, lumps himself in with people like Billy Graham. If he thinks that, Billy Graham that he's one of them, and that Paul Washer is one of them, then clearly he's saying that he still sees that wherever he's at, that Christians are his brothers and sisters, and that, he even called on the name of Baal. He said the Lord, and that's who he serves. And he said, to his own words, those in Christianity are his brothers and sisters serving the truth.
Brother, who's Paul Washer? I've never heard of him.
He's a Baptist preacher.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never heard of who. I never even knew anything about who he was until it was brought up. Is he kind of like a TBN kind of guy?
No, definitely not.
What is he into Torah?
No, definitely no. He's just a Baptist preacher.
Oh, I don't know why he brought Paul Washer. I don't know why he brought him up because he's a Christian, but I guess Christians and Baptists are kind of the same, right?
What is your friend in? Is he like in Messianic roots? Is he?
No, he's a Christian. He's a straight up Christian.
Okay, that's what I thought. Well, then that's why he brought up Paul Washer.
Yeah, he's a straight up Christian. He doesn't really. He's not into Torah. I mean, he believes in a Jewish Mashiach, but he's not into any of the, keeping Shabbat, doing the feast, observing new moons. He's just a regular Christian guy.
Why does he keep wanting to come on? Did he say why he wanted to come on this time?
No. I totally forgot that he was already on and that we had an issue. And I told him because I was talking to him about something yesterday regarding Torah. And I say, hey, brother, I have this group that I get together with on Shabbat. Do you want to get on? But he never told me that he was already on with us before. Hey, brother Doug, what happened?
I don't know. I think our Cricket hotspot box might have just. I can see here. I think ran through our data already.
Did it boot you off the live feed?
I think we're on live right now. From what I'm seeing here, we're on live.
No, I don't think so.
Let me just, yeah, we are. Let me just end it right here. So shalom, everyone. I apologize for that. Please look forward to next time, guys. We'll be back, Yahuwah willing, next week. Shabbat shalom. All right, we're almost off right now. Just get-
So,